They are ghosts in the underworld of European organized crime. While the Italian Mafia relied on century-old rituals, the Albanian Mafia built an empire on blood, speed, and total operational security. To understand how they conquered the streets of London, Brussels, and beyond, you have to look past the myths. This is the rigid, ruthless hierarchy that turns local gangs into international syndicates. At the very bottom of the pyramid sits the recruit. These aren't career criminals yet. They are usually young men, often brought into the fold through familial connections. The Albanian system is built on the concept of Besa. It translates roughly to a pledge of honor. If you break your word, you don't just lose your reputation, you lose your life. This ancient code of conduct is the glue that holds the hierarchy together. Unlike other gangs that recruit based on street savvy, Albanians recruit based on trust. You are either family or you are nobody. Above the recruits, you find the soldiers. These are the muscle. They handle the low-level distribution of narcotics, the street-level protection rackets, and the logistics of human trafficking. They are the ones who put in the labor. They don't have decision-making power, but they possess a high level of autonomy. In the 1990s, during the chaos of the post-communist transition, these soldiers cut their teeth in the heroin trade. They learned how to move product from the Golden Crescent through the Balkans and directly into Western Europe. By the time they hit the European markets, they were faster, cheaper, and more violent than their competitors. As you climb higher, you reach the capos. These are the regional commanders. They control specific cities or lucrative transport routes. If you are moving cocaine into the UK or running a smuggling operation across the English Channel, you are answering to a capo. They are the bridge between the street-level soldiers and the executive leadership. They don't handle the drugs. They handle the money and the conflict resolution. If a soldier gets arrested, the capo ensures the legal fees are paid and the family is taken care of. If a rival gang steps on their toes, the capo gives the order to strike. This is where the business becomes professional. Above the capos sits the inner circle. These are the heads of the clans. In Albania, the structure is tribal. There are roughly 15 major families that control the vast majority of the criminal landscape. These leaders don't usually sit in high-rise offices. They are often hiding in plain sight. They manage the international alliances. They are the ones negotiating with the Colombian cartels for the cocaine supply and the Turkish networks for the heroin distribution. They operate like CEOs of a multinational corporation, but with the threat of execution if a quarterly target is missed. At the very top of the hierarchy is the boss of bosses, or the head of the most powerful clan. But the Albanian system is unique because it isn't centralized like the American Mafia. It is a loose confederation of families. The boss doesn't control every street corner. He controls the territory and the respect of the other families. He is the final arbiter of justice. When two clans have a blood feud that threatens the bottom line, he is the one who reconciles the debt. If he fails, the streets run red. The statistics are staggering. Estimates from Europol suggest that Albanian criminal networks control a significant portion of the European cocaine market. In the UK, they are credited with taking over the nighttime economy in cities like London. They don't fight over territory in the traditional sense. They simply outcompete and outmuscle everyone else. They have a massive advantage: silence. Because the hierarchy is rooted in the Besa code and familial ties, it is almost impossible for police to flip an insider. You cannot offer a deal to a man who knows that talking means the end of his entire bloodline. The hierarchy functions because it is invisible. You won't find a godfather with a fancy office. You will find a man who runs a legitimate construction company, or a chain of restaurants, or an import-export business. They use the infrastructure of legal trade to mask the movement of illicit goods. They don't spend their money on flashy jewelry. They reinvest it. They buy property. They corrupt local officials. They build the kind of soft power that makes them untouchable. In 1997, Albania collapsed into anarchy following a failed pyramid scheme. Thousands of weapons flooded the streets. The criminal networks that emerged from that fire were battle-hardened and desperate. They didn't see borders as obstacles, they saw them as market expansions. They moved into the heroin trade, then the cocaine trade, and finally into the high stakes world of human trafficking. They turned their disadvantage, a lack of centralized state power, into a massive strategic advantage. They had no law, so they became the law. The hierarchy is held together by the fear of exclusion. If you are cast out of the Albanian network, you have nowhere to go. You cannot return home. You cannot go to the police. You are a ghost with a target on your back. This creates a level of loyalty that is unseen in modern criminal enterprises. It is a system designed to survive for generations. The Albanian Mafia isn't going anywhere. They have evolved beyond the street thug archetype. They are now an integral part of the global illicit economy. They have successfully bridged the gap between old world tribal loyalty and new world corporate efficiency. They have learned that the best way to run a criminal empire is to make it look like just another business. We live in a world where money flows digitally and borders are increasingly porous. These clans are perfectly adapted to this environment. They are not waiting for the world to change, they are changing with it. The question is no longer whether they can be stopped, but whether the systems we have in place are even capable of understanding the threat. When a criminal organization is built on family, blood, and a code of silence that predates the modern state, how do you dismantle it? Perhaps the answer is that you don't. You just watch the empire grow, one branch at a time, until the hierarchy is so deeply rooted that it becomes impossible to tell where the crime ends and the society begins.